Welcome back, everyone. We are back for episode number 63 of the Auld Triangle podcast. My name is Andy Stevenson. I am joined today by Caoilte de Barra. We are going to chat about a lot of things in Irish MMA. We're going to chat about UFC 304, everything that happened in Manchester. We're going to review the Cage Legacy 23 card and some news that came off the back of that. I was over in Manchester at the UFC card. Caoilte was reunited with our fearless leader, who is not here today, Ian O'Neill, at the Cage Legacy card. We'll chat about that. And I think it would only be fitting to start the podcast, firstly, with a little clap and a huge congratulations to Ian O'Neill. Mr. Ian O'Neill, the King of Kilkenny, is a married man. A massive congratulations to Ian and his beautiful wife, Olivia. I saw some photos. They looked absolutely stunning. Everyone who's listening should be going, wishing that man a massive congratulations on his marriage. I mean, this guy, not only did he get married, Caoilte, I mean, I saw he's a rock star now. He's a rap star. He's playing the spoons. I mean, I saw one of the most impressive performances of House of Pain's jump around that I think we'll ever see. Did you see all this wedding content? I mean, he's a man of many talents.
He can do it all. He can fight. He can do all the media. He's a working man. And now we learn he's a musical prodigy. Like, this is just, I'm awful jealous of him. Like, I wish I had all these talents. It was incredible. And the fact that he knew it word for word, that song, and he killed. I was pumped afterwards. I was like, this is brilliant. He nearly run through a wall after listening to him. Unbelievable. And the spoons and everything, absolutely fantastic. So man,
it's a man, like, watching that video of him doing the House of Pain performance was like that. He's done that before. There's no way that's the first time he's done it. He was locked in. He had the look in his eyes like he was ready for a fight. Like, he was like dialed in there. Now the spoons, I'll question the spoon. I don't know if he's a professional spoons player. I'm gonna maybe have some healthy skepticism around that. I think he may have been winging the spoons. I apologize if I'm wrong on that one, though. He's probably sipping like a pina colada or a nice Aperol spritz in the south of Italy or wherever he's in Sorrento, I think, right now.
That's it, south of Italy, yeah.
Is that south of Italy? I don't know. I don't know my Italian geography.
One of the nice place you'll ever go.
He's probably having he's probably going to listen to this maybe, 3 drinks in and be like, these motherfuckers just talking shit about me. But we miss you, Ian, and we're looking forward to having him back. He will be back for the next episode, I believe. You saw him, Caoilte. How I suppose I to be honest, to be frank with you and the listeners, I'm bollocks right now. I've been Ian had a wedding. I didn't have my own wedding. I was at a different wedding over the weekend. It was.
How did the speech go, Andy?
I didn't have a speech. I wasn't.
Did you not?
No. I was just it was one of my best mates from growing up, but I wasn't in the wedding party. But my God, it was a couple of very late nights, let's just say, and I'm suffering for it now. As we are here on I was going to say Monday evening. It was a bank holiday Tuesday evening. So, how are you though? What's been going on in your life,
lads? I'm the younger one here, and my life is a lot less exciting than yours. It's mad. No, not much now. Getting ready to move, getting ready to go to England and watch Burnley, and that's as exciting as it comes. The best thing I've done the last 2 weeks is go to Cage Legacy, and that was top tier. Got to see Ian himself. We'll speak more about that later on, though. But that's as exciting as it comes for me lately.
We will. I mean, it looked like a great trip up to Dublin for the two of yous. We will chat a little bit more about that. But let's first kick off by chatting about UFC 304 in Manchester. As I mentioned, I was there at the event. It was, I'd say, probably overall a disappointing night for Irish MMA. Of course, we went 1-2 on the evening. Sean O'Bannon getting a great win, a very, very important win for her. But obviously, Kiefer and Kaelin suffering defeats. My God, it was hell getting through the event, just because you go in and it's 10 o'clock. I think we were queuing up from 9:15 to get into the place. Got in and went in when it was pretty much daylight out. Sun was setting, starting to get a bit dark, and then I think I left at 8:30 in the morning, and there's a crowd of Bilal Muhammad fans waiting for him to come out, and it's just completely it's just complete daylight. So it was very disorientating. But let's talk about the results, I guess. Well, what did you make, I guess, of it overall from an Irish perspective?
I think you summed up well there, and it was a little bit disappointing. I think we all had really high hopes going into it of potentially maybe 3 wins, 2 at least, and to come out with one felt a little bit. Probably felt a lot of fans were maybe disappointed and kind of hoped that it could nudge UFC to come back Dublin a little bit quicker. But look, that's the fight game, though. That's how it is. I'd love to hear if the factors of the time played into it. Between that, opponent changes, there's so many factors involved in this, and I'd love to hear from the fighters themselves as to what they thought about the night, and I guess the timing of the cards, all these different factors. To be very honest, but yeah, overall, look, that's just kind of how it goes sometimes, and it's a shame. Hopefully we see opportunities, another opportunity for Kiefer soon, because I know he's on the 2-fight skid. I would imagine he'll get one. Caoilte, hope to see him get back in there, and no adversity this time, and hopefully a good fight for Shauna next, maybe by the end of the year. But yeah, that's kind of my overall thoughts on it, to be honest.
Yeah, you mentioned Shauna there. She obviously kicked off the card with a win, which was, look, I watched it back, and I know that the commentators were a bit kind of harsh on Shauna, I thought, and maybe they were being a bit critical of her kind of throughout the fight. But going into this fight, Shauna's coming off a debut loss in the UFC. The only thing that really mattered with this one was getting her hand raised, and she did that. And I thought it was like, I watching the fight live from cage side, I had it rounds 1 and 3 for Shauna. Obviously, she was kind of taken down by Arlene, or I can't remember everyone's name is Arlene. But I thought she did a great job of being very active off the bottom, looking for subs off her back. I know she may have got a little bit away with some fence grabs and stuff there earlier on, but look, we'll say nothing about that. But I thought she was very active off her back, looking for subs, raining down elbows, and I thought that did enough to win her the round. Round 2, I would have given it to Arlene, and then in the third, or actually, but before we get to that, how about Paddy Houlihan just in between round 1 and 2, smashing right into the camera, hilarious. Yeah, just brilliant. But going into round 3, Paddy's telling her it's 1-1, and I thought she did a brilliant job of picking up the pace, pouring it on, using her side kicks well to kind of gauge the distance, and I thought she was putting a lot more, throwing with a lot more volume and venom in the third round, which I think was great to see. And if she can fight like that across 3 rounds, I think there's potential there, definitely. What did you make of the fight overall, and how did you score it?
Exact same way. 1 and 3 were the 2. We were watching it just after Cage Legacy, about 5 of us surrounding Denny's phone, watching the fight. And yeah, I had 1 and 3 for Shauna. I thought, same as what you mentioned there, but that third round where she is like, she can do that for 3 rounds. My God, she will go through girls, because that third round was really impressive. I think kind of sat in the punches a little bit more, was vicious, went for it, and it didn't seem as hesitant. So being able to translate that over to other rounds in future, that'd be a very good, that'd be incredible to see. But overall, you can't really fault it in the sense that she got the win. That was the most important thing. She went out there, she got the win under a lot of pressure, I imagine, as well. Like, after losing your debut, a lot of hype going into the UFC as well. So fair dues, it was a good performance. Tough fight. Arlene really, she put it up to her. Like, she surprised me anyway. I say she surprised a lot of people. I'm not sure about yourself, Andy, but Arlene put it up to her, and Shauna, she tested her, and Shauna came through all the tests possible, and then the third round took over and won the fight. I was surprised by the split decision, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people were online kind of criticizing Arlene coming into, when she was signed, etc. But yeah, like she definitely put it up to Shauna throughout the fight. And yeah, like the split decision. I mean, I think it's one of those fights as well where they are very close rounds. Like I wouldn't have a huge amount of outrage if someone scored around differently to me in any of the rounds. Really, like I thought they were all quite close. Maybe the third would be the only one where I would say, well, I thought that was a definite Sean around. But yeah, like as you said, like the only important or the main thing here was getting that win. And especially, she spoke afterwards when she came backstage to the media scrum about having a really, really tough year mentally. And she didn't go into details on that. But it sounds like it's been a rough year for her. So to be able to, it's probably very difficult. One, when you're, she's got a lot on her plate. Like she's a single mother. She's a full-time fighter, professional fighter, and then additionally, if they're like, I've no idea what this stuff is or anything like that, but if you've got other stuff going on, it's a lot. It's a lot to take on. So to go out there and get the win, I think it's a successful night. It absolutely is a successful night for Shauna Bannon, and you can see how much it meant to her and Paddy. And yeah, it was great to see. Obviously, we're unbiased and all that, but like you see these, you follow someone's career, you kind of want them to do well, while being as down the line, down the middle as possible. So it was good to see.
It's like inspirational, nearly.
Yeah, like it was great to see, I thought. Moving on to the next up in night, Kiefer Crosby. Another rough one for Kiefer, unfortunately. Of course, coming into the debut was short notice. It was halfway across the world. It was against a guy much bigger than him, coming down a weight class. And again, like I think he had a very difficult opponent here in Sam Patterson. What did you make of the fight? Obviously, he had the full camp this time. It was a bit different, closer to home. But again, fighting a long rangey guy. He was talking to us beforehand about like kind of being sick of sparring these lads in the gym, etc. But yeah, what did you make of the fight and the performance?
Yeah, look, another tough day at the office. Thought he looked good early on with some of the striking. He got some nice shot. He landed some nice shots. He was chopping down. He was going for them low kicks early, landing exchange, and before Patterson managed to get one shot in, and then when it went to the ground, Kiefer wasn't able to, I guess, defend and implement his own grappling to the defense to avoid getting submitted. But look, a tough night at the office. I watched I think he put up a video afterwards, or as a post afterwards, about how he had injuries going into the fight, and that's gonna hamper his ability to perform at his best, and and that's not gonna help things either. But yeah, it was tough. It's a tough one because it's like a similar fight to the one before against your man Kevin Jousset. It's can't catch a break with these big, long, rangy lads who are quite good at grappling and take the fight down very early on. But yeah, like that's kind of my thoughts on the fight. Really, it's a tough one. I think he deserves another opportunity anyway. That's kind of, I imagine, a big question on people's minds with two, coming off 2 first round loss finishes.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know if anyone deserves, like, not to go full Dana White, but like, I don't mean like I don't know if anyone deserves anything in MMA, but I guess history would show that you lose your first 2 fights in the UFC by first round stoppage. It's the chances are you may not get another opportunity. Now I hope he does, of course. And also it is different when I say talking about that, like history shows us this. The UFC now is a bit different than it used to be, and we do see people, on losing streaks continue to get opportunities. And to be fair to Kiefer, he did them a massive favor. I know, like, you're always supposed to be ready, and if you're not in the promotion, you kind of have to take your chances. But he did fly halfway across the world on very short notice to save a fight. So you would hope that they would maybe put a bit of stock into that. I do wonder, like, I'm aware that Sam Patterson and Kevin Jousset are probably on like one end of the spectrum as far as like the height and the reach when it comes to welterweight fighters, etc. And like I thought in this fight, Sam Patterson looked phenomenal. I thought this was arguably the best we've seen Sam Patterson, and I don't know, maybe it's a case that Kiefer caught him on a bad night, but I can't help but think that Kiefer's always but like he's always talked about going to 155 and going to lightweight. I know he's fought there. I think he fought against was it the Armenian fighter Georgia Karkanyan at Bellator? I think he fought him at 155, and I just wonder would that be an option here, because he's a lot smaller than some of these welterweights, and I think that really goes against him. And like I thought, I realized he got finished in the first round very early on. Like when he's trading in the pocket, he looks a lot more comfortable. But it's just, I thought when that uppercut landed, that kind of changed the demeanor of the fight, and from there, obviously Patterson took over and got the finish. But yeah, look, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Kiefer here now. He's and if he doesn't get another opportunity, he's in a tough spot, because he's into his 30s now. He's got kids at home. There'll be decisions to make. Of course, there are other opportunities out there, and you would hope that other opportunities would come up. But from listening to him speak about his mental health and how this has affected him, and I hope he's okay, because it's probably a pretty rough thing to go through when you're after losing. And he spoke beforehand about kind of suffering with the mental side of the game, of the sport. To then kind of have to go through this again, it's not great. I saw Molly McCann talking about this, where she's felt like the lowest she's ever felt. So I hope Kiefer's all right. But look, hopefully he gets another opportunity. But there may be some decisions that kind of need to be made, and other opportunities explored if the call doesn't come. So we'll just have to see how that plays out, I guess. Another rough one was for Caoilte Loughran. Caoilte Loughran had a mad week, didn't he? Like there was a lot going on for him.
It's like the Paris card all over again. Like it's carnage. Like he's really not had a good run of it, in terms of like a good run of luck where he's had consistency all along. It's chopping and changing. Outside of the fight he won, the other one's just chopping and changing constantly, and I imagine it's very frustrating for him. Like,
yeah, I mean, like I thought he did a great job of kind of building up this fight, or building up himself in the lead up to this one. Of course, Jake Hadley came in on short notice here, which was like, I guess with the benefit of hindsight, the way that I was looking at this coming in here was, geez, this is a phenomenal fight, firstly. But also, like, Jake Hadley's coming up a weight class. Like this is really playing into Caoilte Loughran's favor. Did you think that? And like, having seen how the fight played out, did you, with the benefit of hindsight, like did your opinion shift on that?
Slightly, yeah. The fact that Hadley missed weight, I guess, I don't want to lean that too much, because the fact that he missed weight doesn't help things too much either. But I think Hadley looked really good at bantamweight. I was so surprised at how good he looked. I didn't think Hadley would be able to live with Caoilte at 135. I didn't think he'd look as big as he did. And the way he handled that, the way he performed and kind of negated everything, not everything, but a lot of things that Caoilte was throwing, and not really give him a chance to get into the fight or kind of get into his groove, really. Like it was, I was expecting it to be a much closer fight, to be very honest. But Hadley he really impressed me in that one, and like Caoilte, it just felt like he never really got going or got into his groove, or kind of managed to implement that game plan which he had going into it. And he spoke to us about it before, because he was training for southpaws. He was obviously training for a bit of a rangy southpaw, and he got a bit of a different opposition this time. But it just didn't seem like he was able to get what he wanted off, and it was a tough one for him, really. But it was a good fight, though. I did enjoy it. It was quite technical to an extent. It was quite technical. It was one of those Cage Warriors dream matchups that people would have loved maybe 2 years ago, and it finally happened in the UFC, which is very cool to see.
In the lead up to this one, there was the incident on the bus with Paddy Pimblett, which was a thing where they're kind of trading barbs back and forth. There was that going on. There was the change of opponent. Do you feel like, not to make excuses or anything for Caoilte, but like, do you feel like that had any effect on Caoilte on fight week, or is it kind of irrelevant to once fight night hits?
The back and forth, not at all, to be honest. I think he's probably probably experienced that a heap of times before. Sure, he went to Paris and he was the villain. So I don't think that type of stuff would get to him. When we spoke to him, he seemed locked in, razor focused, and he's renowned for chatting a bit of shit. So I think he's more than capable for not leaving that get to him at all, to be honest with you. So I don't think that really played a factor.
Yeah, and I mean, like, one, it was kind of nice to see, from what I've heard anyway, it centered around Paul Hughes. You can kind of hear that in the video. There was some conversation around him or around kind of Vucenic getting signed, but Pimlet kind of expressing opinions on Hughes off the back of that. So it's kind of nice to see an Irishman stand up for another Irishman, just from a patriotic perspective. It also brings a lot of eyes. Like, I do think you could be standing here or, talking about, geez, this is a brilliant week for Caoilte Knocker, and had he gone in here and won here and gotten on the mic and been able to kind of chat more shit about Pimlet, etc., and whoever else, it's a home run. So I do think that you can flip that on its head and say, this is kind of a good thing. It brings a lot more eyes. Paddy Pimlet's a star in the sport, to bring eyes on you. One thing I was surprised by within the fight was, you mentioned we spoke with him beforehand, and he was kind of talking about that someone coming up from 125 is not going to be able to deal with, like, the pressure that he puts on, and when he's on top of him, etc. And I was a little bit surprised. Like, I feel like what won Hadley the fight was probably his speed more than anything. I thought that in the exchanges on the feet, he was that little bit quicker, which kind of makes sense when you're a fighter who's been at a smaller weight class. But I was surprised not to see Caolan grapple as much. Like, as the fight wore on, we saw it a little bit more, but he seemed quite content to kind of stay on the feet, or we didn't see takedown attempts as early as I would expect. Now, Hadley dealt with them quite well when they did come, but were you surprised not to see him implement his grappling a bit more, especially earlier on in the fight?
Yeah, I thought because of I know I alluded to the fact earlier Hadley missed weight. He had such short notice to train for this that I thought if he took him down earlier, he would have had an opportunity to wear him down and empty that gas tank of Hadley early, and maybe make the next 2 rounds harder for him, because he didn't have a full camp going into this. I imagine he was training, he was staying ready, as all those usual things. But I thought that he would grapple more in the first round, and then kind of start taking over from round 2 onwards, because usually it's that. For when people come in on short notice, you never know what version of them you're going to get. And the first round is usually probably the most dangerous, because if they only have 1 round in them, they're going to go for it. And so I was a bit surprised by that. I thought he would try and implement that early and maybe get some takedowns in, some ground and pound, and try and wear him down up against the fence, make it a bit of an ugly fight early. And if you go by how Hadley performed in round 2 and round 3, and in terms of how he dealt with the takedowns, maybe it wouldn't have made a difference. So who knows, really? But yeah, I was surprised, to answer your question simply.
Yeah, and look, it was a very impressive performance from Hadley too. Like, to come in here at short notice and do that, and we know as you mentioned there, this is kind of a Cage Warrior super fight, former champion versus former champion here. And we know how good Hadley is. Good. I know he's picked up a couple of losses in the UFC, but he's a very, very good fighter. Caolan now 1-2 in the promotion. Not an ideal start for him, but when you factor in the short notice opponent change, taking on Taylor Lapilus in his debut was obviously a huge step up in experience. Then he got the win over in New Jersey, Atlantic City, right? And then obviously taking on Hadley. So not ideal, but I think that he has garnered a lot of attention. He's kind of been the butt of the joke for the last little bit about this comparison to the character from the movie.
I can't think of it either.
Major Chip Hazard, I believe, is the name.
That was it.
But look, I think he's got a lot of a spotlight on him. So I think that we'll definitely see him again in the UFC. I like, that's not even crossing my mind. But I think there's a lot of fun fights out there for him, and it'll be very interesting to see how he kicks on from here and how he adjusts and how he comes back. But yeah, look, not to gloss over it all, but it was a disappointing night, I would say, for like I felt a bit deflated by the end of the night, where you have 3 Irish on the card, and unfortunately, but I think we probably need to be a bit more realistic, and maybe we can have a bit more of a conversation about this later on after we talk about the Cage legacy, about like the overall state of Irish MMA, and where we're at. But going in, I would have said 2 wins would have been a great success. 3 might have been a little bit unrealistic, and 1 would have been, probably the bare minimum when you're looking at some sort of level of success in the UFC. But 1 and 2 on the night is not the best night, not one of the best nights in Irish MMA by any stretch.
No, and one thing because I couldn't hear through, didn't have sound on when I was watching the fights originally, and watched them back then, didn't take as much notice. But from someone who was in the arena, what were the Irish crowd? Was there much of a traveling crowd for them? Is there much of a pop each time that they came out? What was that like?
Yeah, I would say there was. I feel like even from early on for Shauna, there was a pop. I think that the stadium was quite, when you factor in what time in the night it was on at, a lot of people were just there from the opening bell. Like it filled up fairly quickly. It wasn't like, cards, you see the in Dublin, for example, the Bellator Dublin or PFL cards or whatever, they'll start at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock and it'll be empty because like people aren't coming in until later on. They started at 11 p.m. at night. So it was fairly full from early on. I thought there was a good crowd, and there was the Olays going and all of that. I actually missed Kiefer's fight live because Shauna was back in the media room at that point. So I wasn't out there for that. I was there for Caoilte's fight. I thought there was, obviously he's fighting an Englishman there as well, but I thought there was some good support overall. Now he had the interaction with Paddy Pimblett as well, though, and I was a very pro Paddy Pimblett crowd, so that probably didn't do him any favors there. But I would say overall there was definitely a decent buzz in there for the Irish, and I think they got a decent level of support in there. Let's move our attention away from Manchester and back to Dublin, where I missed out on the El Triangle reunion. That more than anything, and to be honest, I was like, oh, I'm going to have a lot of FOMO here. I didn't really see a whole lot on the night because I was kind of just running around in Manchester. So thankfully, for my own lack of FOMO, I missed out on it a bit. But how was the card overall? Maybe we'll let's give me your experience of Cage Legacy 23 first of all, and then we can get into the fights and talk on a bit further from there.
You aren't the only one running around, Andy. Jesus, we were flying around it's the first time ever being in the warehouse, for context, and we had no idea where we could set up to do an interview whatsoever. We ended up interviewing people in 3 different locations in the building, once next to a bar while people are all getting drinks. We had Denny on security so people didn't walk past the shot. Another time we were in a corridor stopping this party for a 60-year-old woman from getting her food because we're interviewing Conor McCarthy, and the catering staff are just sitting there looking at us through the window. And then the other time we had the full, there was the lights set up that was available to be used there too. But with all the music and everything, it made it quite difficult. So we adapted, we got through it, and look, it's a brilliant night.
It's a mad spot, isn't it? I had the exact same experience both time, or however many times I've been there now. And it's not relevant to any specific show. It was the same for Premier. It was the same for RFC. It was the same for Cage Legacy. It's a mad spot. But I think what did you make of the area? Because the first time I was there, it was in that kind of circus tent for 2 of the cards, and then I went for Premier then last December, and I thought it was way better in the area. The kind of it's out past the nightclub, or I don't really know.
It's just past the nightclub, and there's that little it's not like it's like an amphitheater type of thing where it all looks down on the main stage, or the cage in this case. And despite the fact it was absolutely boiling, it was cool. I liked it. You could feel the atmosphere in the place for the big fights and the big moments, which I really liked. The view from the top looking down. So I think for the two main fights, the co-main and the main event, I was able to watch from above, and that's a really cool kind of bird's eye view of the cage that you don't usually get. And I really like that now. But yeah, look, it was deadly, and the most important thing, I got to see Ian. We got to go for a coffee, got to go and Denny, and got to go watch fights, interview the fighters, and Yeah, brilliant. It was.
And
It was.
he goes back for his wedding and still manages to get to an Irish MMA show and cover it. That is dedication.
1 week before, literally 1 week to the day before his wedding, he is in Dublin interviewing lads after pro fights, in the warehouse in Dublin. It's a mad scene altogether. Like,
It seemed like a great atmosphere there as well. Like it seemed like it was kind of happening.
Oh, it's buzzing. Yeah, no, they did. I think they sold. It looks like they sold fairly well because it's a tight crowd, like, But it did look like they sold very well, especially especially onto the main card. It really started picking up, and then you could feel it then for the last 2-3 fights. Just the atmosphere was just insane. The place they blew the roof off the place. Them lads now, in fairness to them. Speaking of atmosphere, there was my one not criticism, the 45-minute random rapper from Liverpool who.
I forgot to see. I didn't see this at all. What was what was the story with that? So I obviously watched the fights back. Thankfully, fair play to them on YouTube. They're all on there. So I did not see this performance, whatsoever. How was it?
Yeah, it was what it was. It's not for me personally. No idea who
Did
he
you
was.
say 45 minutes?
I'm gonna guess. We left and got food.
Okay.
So we watched we thought maybe 2 songs and that was it. But we went and got food, and the main card is like 1 fight in. So I'm gonna say 30 minutes. It felt long anyway, whatever it was. But
I mean, maybe this was the inspiration that Ian needed for his wedding performance. No, I mean, like, is it any coincidence that Ian O'Neill is at an MMA event with a rapper performing at halftime or backstage, whatever you want to call it, the intermission, and then he's on stage himself a week later? I mean, this maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist. Maybe this is Ian's inspiration.
I can't fault it, Andy. I think you might be onto something there. And to be very honest, I think Ian O'Neill may edge it in terms of getting the crowd going, because if you saw the crowd at that wedding, how they responded to him versus the crowd in Cage Legacy. No offense to the rapper, I imagine he's great. He just doesn't seem like he's as well known in Dublin as he would be in Liverpool. And he seemed like a really nice guy. We met him as well. He was dead on. So yeah. Just not. Well, look,
let's talk about the action in the ring or in the cage from an MMA perspective. Just maybe firstly, before we dive into the specific fights, like from watching the fights back, obviously you were there live and I saw it live. I thought it was very, very good from a broadcast production perspective. It looked like they had. I don't know if they went with a different production company or whatever, but they made significant improvements here, because there was a number of things, like the video quality was very, very crisp. I noticed little things like the cameraman following the fighters on their walkouts, like kind of as they come down that stairs and then follow. I thought that was pretty cool. They had like a split screen so you could see both of the fighters, and I think more importantly than anything that I appreciated from watching from a viewer's perspective was instant replay, which you don't really get on regional shows. To be able to, especially in Ireland, like to be able to see, oh, here's the shot, or here's the finish again, and you can have multiple replays of that while you're waiting for the judges' scorecard, or the scorecards, or the official decision or whatever. I thought that was brilliant. So fair play. I thought that was really, really good. The fights themselves, obviously at the top of the card, we had Max Lally defeating Weaver dos Santos. I think I have that Max was main event, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
I was getting confused between himself and Connor there. Look, we kind of talked about this one coming in, that it is what it is, and we were kind of going in there expecting Max to get a first round finish. He got it in the end. Were you impressed by Max? Did you learn anything from that fight?
Not as much, no, to be honest. I probably would have learned a lot more from the Wesley Machado fight. I don't think this lad offered him much tests. I think he threw overhand at one point and Max countered it. There's one takeaway. He countered it very nicely with a lovely shot that maybe I hadn't seen as much before, and he hurt him with it as well. But besides that, no, I didn't really learn as much. Max's levels above this lad. Yeah, fair play to your man for taking on short notice and given a fight, but he was outclassed really in there against Max.
Yeah, I think Max showed his level in there. I actually spoke with Max. I'm not going to go into detail or anything, but like obviously we're looking at this from an outsider's perspective and thinking, what are we going to learn from this? What does this fight mean, etc. And we can be critical of the matchmaking at times, but from speaking, every time I speak to a fighter, and this includes Max, they want to be fighting different lads. They want to be fighting different tests. They want to be testing themselves and, kind of getting that validation of, okay, I look phenomenal against this level of fighter. How do I look against the next level? How do I look against the next level? So I don't think it's on the fighters, and it's also probably very difficult, and fair play to Declan Kenna and the lads in Cage Legacy for getting Max a replacement and for getting Conor McCarthy multiple replacements, because that's also not an easy thing to do. But yeah, look, it is what it is. It's a fight that I thought he looked brilliant in, but I don't know what that means. I don't know what kind of validation that is. He looked fantastic. He looked levels above Weaver and Dos Santos. I thought he looked dangerous at every moment in the fight. I thought he was catching him with different shots at every moment. Obviously got him down to the ground and then just bludgeoned him from there. And it was a quick finish in the end. But yeah, like I really want to see Max active. I want to see him in there again and again and again. And I want to see, we need to see a step up in competition. It doesn't have to be a world beater or anything like that, but just we need a fight we'll talk about Conor McCarthy in a moment, like the Conor McCarthy's next fight, where you're like, okay, this is I'm excited for this. But yeah, look, let's move on anyway to the aforementioned Conor McCarthy, who also looked very, very impressive, I thought, here. And he fought Gabriel Lanza, again, finished by a first round KO here. We were having the conversation again prior to the fight about his other opponent, and again we were saying, this is probably a bit of a showcase fight for Conor. I thought that this one, while Lanza isn't a world beater or anything like that, there is something to be said sometimes for these types of fights where, like, he came out like a bat out of hell when that opening bell came out, like throwing the flying knee, just swinging wildly at Conor McCarthy. And Conor had to, like, I don't think he was ever looking like he was getting hurt or anything, but like, your man was kind of landing, he was having to shell up and maybe not even weather the storm, but just kind of like get his bearings and kind of get to his range and his distance and all this stuff. So there probably is something to be said for having to deal with that. It's almost like a shock to the system, I'm sure, to be like, this is not how an average fighter will come out and fight you, like just kind of throwing the kitchen sink at you. Now, ultimately, once he composed himself and once he found his range and all that stuff, it was a clean night at the office for Conor McCarthy. But yeah, what did you make of that performance?
Yeah, like your man really, really surprised me. Like, he came out like as you said, a bat out of hell. Like, he really put it on Conor early, trying to just get in his face, make it uncomfortable, make it ugly, like, and not give him that range to strike that Conor's so good at her. And look, that's one of the, sometimes when someone comes out like that, one punch that, one or two of those punches, if they get through or one of them catches you wrong, someone could go down. But Conor stayed really, so I could see it. So when Conor's up against the cage, or he's up near by where his corner is, where Peter and all them are, you can see how composed all of them are, and they're calm in the situation. Because you could see people being like, "Whoa, this guy's being a bit." He's surprising everyone here, and you could see how composed they all were. And then when Conor kind of got his feel of the fight a little bit, and then found his range, and then just, you could tell that was the beginning of the end, because he said teeing off that beautiful 1-2, took that step back, right hand, and that's all she wrote. And it was really good. And I think that wasn't a bad fight. All in all, record aside, yeah, it wasn't a bad fight. And credit where it's due for getting someone like that in on last minute to give that type of test, because we can be very critical of those at times, and it wasn't a guy who rolled over.
Yeah, and 100%. And we'll talk about this in a little bit as well. But like, I think that I want to see Conor McCarthy fighting, 3, 4, 5 times against whoever on the regional scene. He spoke to Ian O'Neill after the fact about wanting to stay in the regional scene for the next year or so before. I know he mentioned talking about cage wars, things like this in time, but we look at these fighters from such an early age and an early stage in their career now that we're like, oh, you know, this guy's going to be the next prospect, this guy's going to be that, this or that, and then like there's a step up to, well, there's not always a step up in quality to pro, but it's different. It's a different rule set. It's a different phase in your career, and I think that we probably just need to see activity. And you know, again, as I said with Max, it doesn't have to be fighting, you know, world beaters right now, but just going in there with like, let's see how he looks for the next year, and let's see him fight 4 or 5 times if we can. But yeah, I thought it was a brilliant performance from Conor. And if we do see him in the cage wars gloves at some point, I think you know, he kind of mentioned cage wars, but he was kind of leaving the door open to be like, well, let's see what Peter Caoilte has to say. So that'll be very interesting to see though. And I think, Jesus, if you had him paired with a guy like a matchmaker like Ian Dean in time, that could be a recipe for serious success. But we shall move on. We're back. We took a quick pause there because Kelly Harrington just won double Olympic gold. Yup the Irish.
What a fight.
Not just an MMA podcast. Oh my God. Wow. Let me recompose myself. We were just talking about Conor McCarthy there, but what I failed to mention was in Max Lally's post-fight interview with Ian O'Neill on SevereMMA, he was asked what's next. Who do you want? And he was talking about wanting, you know, the big fights, wanted to test himself, all this stuff, and he called out Norris Bartoska. And my God, this is what we need more of in Irish MMA. We need the you know, what he was like, make Irish MMA exciting again or something. He said,
that's it, yeah.
Like I'm fully on board with that. Like, we talked about this in our last episode with the Akuma fights, and I think one of those has fallen off. But like, we need more of these professional fights. Let's find out who the best fighter in Ireland is. You know, let's do it. Let's just put on these fights. What did you think about that call out, Caoilte?
I love it. From my understanding, I think that wasn't like random. I believe Norris he instigated that with a story of some form, and okay. Max matched it, called it out in the interview. Fantastic fight, and now Norris is in the comments saying send the contract, all this. I think it's the fight to make, to be honest. Perfect test for both of them. Like, that is it's a proper prospect versus prospect fight, and wow, what a fight that would be in Ireland. You know, it'd be perfect. I'd love it. We need it. The scene is better for it. It's like, we need more fights like that. So I saw that. I think, as you're saying, like, I saw Bartoski seems up for it as well. He was like signing the contract, all that stuff. So some promoter, we'll get to the it may not be Cage Legacy. We'll get to that in a little bit, but a promoter needs to put that on in Ireland, make that fight happen. Like, it's a fight that people want to see. It's 2 guys with undefeated records. Let's do it. Enough of these other types of matchups. These are the types that we want to see. We were just talking about an amazing woman who put on a phenomenal performance in Kelly Harrington there. We diverted away from MMA for a quick second, but there was another woman who put on one hell of a performance at Cage Legacy 23, and that is Caoilte Sullivan, who defeated Carolina Arm via second round KO, a highlight reel. You know, there was chance of Leon Edwards' infamous, you know, headshot dead kind of slogan after she put her out cold with a left high kick. Caoilte, you were there. What was the atmosphere? What was your reaction? What was it like seeing that live? The place erupted. Oh my God. I had my hands on the top of my head looking at it. I was in shock. I was like, wow, that was, yeah. You don't see in amateur, you know, obviously pro MMA, you see some mad knockouts. In amateur MMA, you don't often see knockouts like that. That was just, yeah. And I think the other side to this as well is just how good of a fight and how high level of a matchup that is, because Caoilte Sullivan played Carolina Arm at her own game. Carolina Arm is a high level striker. She transitioned from Muay Thai, where she, I believe, went undefeated. Maybe was it 17-0?
They were saying, like, you know better than I do, but like, they were saying she's fought at amateur and professional Muay Thai.
Oh, yeah, no, she
doesn't have as much experience in MMA, but she's got it, and it was evident. It was on full display in that first round as well.
Yeah, very decent level Thai boxer. So she And yeah, Kai O'Sullivan decided to strike with her, played her at her own game and beat her at her own game. That's what made it even more impressive, to be honest. The shot selection from Kai in the first round was top notch. I do think Caroline Arm probably kind of took over that first round near the end just a little bit. And then that second round, whatever adjustments they made in that corner, and to maybe pick out one or two things. And the one thing you could see in that before the first, she landed that head kick early in that round where Caroline Arm kind of drops her left hand just a little bit, and she doesn't seem like someone's going to go for a takedown. So that threat wasn't really there, but the high kick was there to be landed, and it did. And happened once. Kai started taking over that bit more, and then she landed the ultimate finish. And place erupted. What a win, to be honest. That was just, really probably stole the show in a sense. Obviously, there's the two pro fights, but that's a highlight reel KO right there.
It was so impressive. It was so emphatic, and as you said, you don't see that too often at amateur. And we've seen these types of maybe kicks landed before, but to put someone out, like, she was like out cold. And I thought that, as you said, it was the adjustments going in from round 1 to round 2. I've no idea who won that first round. Probably maybe Carolina edged it. I thought that that Kaya was hanging in there with her, certainly, but it was the second round where it seemed that she seemed to just have the distance gauged a bit better. So she was kind of playing that counter-striking game, and every time that Carolina Arm went to start throwing her combos, what Kaya would do was she would counter that. She would kind of slip out of range slightly, counter with that right hook, and follow it up with the left leg up top. And Jesus, like, she landed it, I think, twice, where it was like, you could hear the slap of the foot across the face. And for whatever reason, Caroline Arm just did not make the adjustments. And it was a case of Kai O'Sullivan building on those combinations. And it was the same one. But she implemented it absolutely beautifully. And you won't get more of a highlight reel finish than that one. Kai looks brilliant. She looks well rounded. It'll be very interesting to see when she eventually makes the transition to professional. But she's someone who you would be a lot more familiar with than I would, Caoilte, from throughout her amateur run. But she's had a lot of amateur experience. She's fought, on the kind of regional shows. She's fought on the IMAFs. She has a wealth of experience, obviously coming from a fighting family, and she's got her brother in the corner and her mom involved and all that. Absolutely brilliant to see. I'm very, very excited for the future for Kai O'Sullivan, and it'll be very interesting to see, what's in store for her over the next year or so. Would love to get her on here actually to chat, especially after a performance like that is. So we should probably make that happen and figure out what is next for Kai O'Sullivan, because Jesus, the future looks bright for her, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, you could always tell from the IMAF days just how good she was, and like that's with the shin pads and everything, and they're very grappling heavy tournaments, as everyone kind of knows, because if you have to fight numerous days in a row. But she was always fighting high level girls there as well, and always looked really good. Was probably at the I think there was one or two decisions that you could argue she could have won as well that she lost. I think there was maybe 1-2 of those. One in particular, I think, was like a semi-final or final. I can't remember exactly. There's so many of those tournaments, but always kind of was at that higher standard, the highest standard in the IMAF tournaments as well. And now you've seen it on the regional scene without the shin pads against these girls who are extremely high level. Again, it's not like that's a really, really tough fight, and I imagine she's hard to match, and she's going to be harder to match after that, to be honest. Like, it's a growing scene, the women's scene in MMA, especially around Europe, and there would be, I can't imagine there'd be many more at amateur that would be better than her right now. There might be one or two that would be a very good matchup, but and that might decide it. So it'd be interesting to see who she goes up against next before whatever she decides to do, be it stay at amateur, pro, like, who knows.
Absolutely. And there was a lot of other performers who I'd say were maybe earlier on in their amateur run on this card. Which were the one, like, we're not going to go through every single one. We will chat about a few more of them here now, but which were the other standout performances in your eyes on this card?
Yeah, Alex Keogh, I think he's had this, you hear about these amateurs really, like, before their even amateur debut, you hear about how good they are, and Alex Keogh was one of them. I think some of it's down to how good they were at youth. But we've seen how good he has been since he's become kind of full rules amateur. compared to the youth side of things. And he's gone 4-0 now. His grappling is just sensational. He comes from that kind of SPG Nace, Sergio School of wrestling and grappling, where it's like, striking's very good too, but it's where he's excelling is on the ground. And if that was as quick as you like, ran through him, quick takedown, few shots, then just got the darts, and that's all she wrote. He's fighting against soon as well. So that was a, clean as you like performance from him, really.
It looked like a walk in the park from him, didn't it? Which is like a mad thing to say when you're going into a fist fight, but like he looked phenomenal. As you mentioned, it was just, Robert Barra came out to strike with him, and he was like, no, we're just going to take you down, going to land a bunch of shots. And what I was most impressed with, I guess, is he's showing he clearly has a finishing ability, not a finishing ability, but like an eye for a finish, where he's landing all the shots, and then as soon as he sees an opportunity to go for that dart, he gets it, and it's the second dart in a row now after submitting Jed Paulo there not too long ago. So he looks very, very promising, and even though he's only got 4 fights, like there's loads of lads I'd be very interested to see. I don't have any names on the top of my head, but like there's just so many fights probably there on the Irish amateur scene for him. So it'll be very interesting to see how he gets on, but he looks a serious talent, and obviously, very early days still, so we'll see how he goes, but very, very impressive. Congratulations to him, and just a smooth clinical performance from himself. Cian McCartan got a win over Ben Mahan. We talk about Alex Keogh as someone who's kind of in the early stages of their amateur career. This was a massive step up for Ben Mahan, going in against an experienced amateur like Cian McCartan out of SPG Ireland. And I thought he looked very good. Like, despite, I thought it was a great performance from Cian McCartan to get the win. But I thought Ben Mahan, gave a great account of himself here and showed a lot of promise, considering the lack of experience he has in the cage. What did you make of that fight?
Yeah, it was good. It's back and forth. Ben Mahan, that's a very hard fight to take early on in your career. Like, he's not going to do he's only going to learn from that. He's only going to get like massive experience from it, especially with a lot of the bright spots he had in that fight. So massive step up, and he looked really good. Cian looks like he's kind of gone up a level again. He's always been very good. His grappling's always been brilliant. And his hands have seemed to kind of coming on now a lot as well. He showed some good striking, but his grappling was sensational again in that fight. And it was a unanimous decision. I think I had it fairly clean for Cian McCartan, but Ben Mahan really, he gave him a good scrap in there as well now, and Cian's up against soon.
He's got great hands, doesn't he, for Ben Mahan? Like, I thought it was a very composed performance from Cian to use his experience and use his fight IQ and to implement his grappling. But and the striking exchanges, I thought Ben Mahan looked fantastic, and there's a base there very clearly that he can build on. And it's brilliant to see him going in there and testing himself against a guy with multiple times more fights than he has. So fair play to him. But yeah, really, really impressive stuff. Any other kind of standard performances on the card for you, Caoilte, just to wrap this one up?
Jason McCourtney had a check hook knockout that was just lovely. Really good to watch. One of those kind of, oh my God, moments again. Don't see it often at amateur. Really impressive. He was moving backwards, caught him with a check hook, and that was all she wrote. There was a rematch between Lisa Murta and Daniela Dobele. I hope I'm not butchering that name. I apologize if so.
Yeah, close enough.
But so those two, they went, they just left it all in the cage. Great fight to watch. And then there was Daniel Camphor and Tristan Barnett had a fantastic fight. Tristan actually, he was on course to winning it. His striking looked good. He was fighting really well, but he was submitted in the end. I'm not taking anything away from Daniel here. He looked really good. His grappling's brilliant. He is relentless, and he deserved that. He deserved that finish in the end with how resilient he was throughout that fight and the amount of shots he took to keep coming back and then finally get that finish. Brilliant fight overall. You look at that kind of striker versus grappler aspect to it, and how the momentum swayed from start to finish just made it really exciting. So brilliant fight from the two lads. I'd watch that one again in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I mean, overall, it looked like it was a pretty solid card. I thought that the atmosphere looked brilliant. As I mentioned already, the video quality, the production was great. By all accounts, there was some brilliant performances. At the end, we talked about this not too long ago there, when Max was chatting with Ian after the fact, he was talking about, let's let's make Irish MMA exciting again. He was speaking about kind of the importance of the likes of Declan McKenna and the lads of Cage Legacy getting in these fights and keeping them active, etc. But Cage Legacy, Declan McKenna put out a statement there recently enough, and I'm going to read it out just so we have it here in full before we then talk about it, because it's pretty impactful on the Irish scene, and it's not good news, I would say. So it reads, press release from Declan Kenna, owner of Cage Legacy MMA. It is with mixed emotions that I share this news. Last Saturday night, we successfully hosted our 23rd MMA event, Cage Legacy 23, which turned out to be one of the best cards I've ever organised. Over the past 9 years, Cage Legacy has grown from strength to strength, hosting 23 events along with numerous kickboxing and junior events. However, as everyone is aware, the cost of everything has skyrocketed, making it financially unfeasible for us to continue hosting events without external funding or financial backing. Consequently, we have decided to take a brief hiatus. We will return as soon as possible, and our next event will be announced once circumstances allow. It goes on to talk about the fighters who it's built, such as Sean Bannon, Ian Gary, Paddy Hoolan, Lee Hammond, Richie Smullen, etc., all progressing on to various promotions across the world. I'm paraphrasing here just in the interest of time. And yeah, just kind of thanks everyone we want to extend our heartfelt thanks to everyone who has ever purchased a ticket or a pay-per-view, to all the fighters and coaches who've been part of our journey over the years. Your support and dedication has been invaluable. During this break, we will reassess our options and strategize the best path forward for Cage Legacy. We're committed to continuing our legacy and will return stronger. Thank you for your continued support and understanding. It's an interesting one. It's an issue in that I've kind of read it differently a few different times, where it kind of sounds like they're wrapping up, but at the same time they're saying that they will be back. But it doesn't. I guess, what was your reaction to reading this, and what did you take from it, Caoilte, when you saw it?
Yeah, part of me was wondering, obviously they've been putting on these big shows, going abroad and reaching for the stars, and I always had it in the back of my head of, was too good to be true at times with some of it was very not over, I don't want to say over the top. They really reach for the stars at times and tried to put on these massive events with that costs money. They're flying in fighters as well, and doing that in the Republic of Ireland also costs money. That's the other side of it. I've seen, especially with fallouts, I imagine when there's fighters falling out of cards and you're replacing them, that's going to cost flights because they're probably already booked, and there's all these various things involved, where I imagine that it's just adding up very, very quickly. So yeah, I don't want to say I was too surprised, but yeah.
Do you what do you read from that? Are you do you think that they are shutting down? It's like they did say that they're coming back. Like, what is it? Just do you think it's just a case that we won't see as frequent shows from them? What's your expectation?
Yeah, I think they'll be back. I don't know if that Halloween card will go ahead. Maybe they'll prove me wrong on that one, because they usually have Halloween Havoc every year. So I'd be surprised that one. Maybe they come back by the end of the year, start next year, when, as I said, as they go back to the drawing board, figure out where they can cut costs, where they can make shows more profitable, really, because I imagine there is quite a few things that can be cut out to save money, like the likes of the rapper, for example. I'm guessing here that costs money. That's whatever, a couple of quid saved here and there. In previous shows, the likes of the whole limousine crack, all abundance of different things going on. But look, at the end of the day, he took a big risk, especially with the amount of pro fights he's tried to put on, and that, maybe go back to the drawing board, figure out how many are viable and how it's, how can you make it profitable and sustainable over time.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear as day in the statement there that it's about money. Like it's about the cost of operating a show like this, and we look, to be completely transparent, we've no idea what their books are like. We've no idea what they're spending money on. Like for example, like you mentioned the limousines, etc. There, like that, I think that they are sponsored for events, so that could be free. We don't know if they're spending money on this. And I think, I think to be honest, I think that what the why of why they're going away is probably less important, important from an Irish MMA perspective, in my opinion, right now, and it's more Cage Legacy, and like we've been, we've critiqued certain aspects of the shows at times, but they've been a staple of Irish MMA since 2017. I'm looking back at their very first card here, which was the 2nd of November 2017 in the Barbican Theatre in Drogheda, and you had Kieran Clark fighting for a lightweight title. At the top, Nathan Kelly versus Jack McGuire. They mentioned a lot of the fighters that came through there. The likes of Pedro Carvalho, Peter Queally, Paddy Hoolan had a grappling match. Ian Gary, like there's so Sean O'Bannon. Of course, Sean O'Bannon was huge for them around the kind of the COVID or just post COVID. Her at the end of the tail end of her amateur run. I remember watching her versus Chanel Dyer, and like, my God, that fight has aged well over time. But the main point to make is, they've consistently been putting on shows in the Republic of Ireland over a sustained period of time when nobody else was. And that is an incredibly important part. That is very important for Irish MMA. And like, we can talk about like matchmaking and, strategy or whatever. It's the main thing is that Irish fighters have a platform in whatever capacity, within the Republic of Ireland to be able to fight on shows. And I know we've got the likes of Premier now, we've got the likes of Elite, and we've had people, there was ARFC put on a show, but none of those to date have put it on as consistent a level of shows as Cage Legacy. And I do think that they will be back. I remember at the end of 2022, I just remember seeing they were like just kind of selling cages and stuff like this, which I thought was a little bit alarming. I remember we did like a show where we were doing our ball predictions, and one of mine was, and I was like, I hope I'm wrong, but Cage Legacy won't put on a show. And they did, but there was a gap of 9 months there between that. So I would hope that it's a similar case to that period of time where we do see them back, because we need Cage Legacy. We need the likes of a Cage Legacy in Ireland, in order for fighters to have these events. And when you hear a guy like Max Lally talking about this and be like, let's put on the good fights, like that's what we need. I suppose like Irish MMA, like to broaden the conversation out, like Irish MMA is in a bit of a weird spot right now, I would say. In some ways it's in an amazing spot, because I think that the number of fighters and quality fighters that are breaking out is probably more than ever. And we've got, Ian Gary in the UFC 8-0, one fight away from a title shot. But at the same time, while there are still shows in the north, there is an ongoing issue with the lack of consistent MMA in the Republic of Ireland. And we don't have all of the minutiae or all of the exact details, but any feedback that we've received and any time we've spoken to promoters, it is all kind of centered in around the cost of insurance, the cost of putting on these events, the complexities, the complexities from a health and safety standpoint, which is very important, but it seems to present barriers or a path of greater resistance for fighters to compete on shows because of the expenses that they have to incur. So instead they just go up the north, they go to Newry or they go to Belfast to Cage Conflict, they go to Clan Wars, etc. So it's a bit of a weird spot right now. So I mean, like, it's a bit, I don't think it's a good thing. Like, I think this is a very, very bad thing if Cage Legacy is gone. And I say that they're coming back, but that'd be kind of my take. Would you, I don't know if you have any thoughts off the back of that, Caoilte?
Yeah, like I think you summed it up pretty well from what you hear. Is like there's a reason there's more shows up north, and like consistently as well. Over, there's plenty of them, and they hold multiple ones per year. And it does seem to be quite difficult, or it is, from what we know, it seems quite difficult to put them on down south, and it's a shame and it's tough. And it looks like this could potentially, from what we understand, this could be, or from what we read into it, this could be a potential factor in what happened here with Cage Legacy as well. And seeing that, it's sad, because you don't want to see this happen, and it makes you wonder, like, it makes you question the future of kind of, is it sustainable for those costs, or I guess costs surrounding events in Ireland, is is sustainable to have a scene down here that continues on, like, or has shows consistently, without. Sorry, I'm after losing my train of thought there, but with
No, you're right. No, you're right. I think I agree with everything you're saying so far. Like, does a scene disappear in the Republic?
yeah, that's what I was going a roundabout way about that. Yeah, does it? Like, at what stage does it get too much? Is the best way I'm trying to come across here. And is there a point of no return where shows are just like, no, we're done. Go up north where it's easier. That's the big fear. Like, maybe do Cage Legacy maybe decide to go up north? Maybe for a show or two and see. There's always these type of things. Who knows?
I mean, like, I would hope that it doesn't come to that. Like, obviously, it's better than no shows, but like there's shows already up north. Like there's a good few shows up north. So like that area is kind of serviced. Now there can always be more. I absolutely think that, but there's just not, like, I don't know. Like, I wasn't around when the regional scene was in its kind of boom period of growth prior to Conor McGregor, but like anyone you speak to, it's like, Jesus, there was shows on every weekend up and down the country. And then obviously after the death of Carvalho, things had to change. Like, you cannot have something like that in the country where it's a sport that's already demonized. It's already, seen as this underground kind of criminality almost, which it isn't. But something had to change there. But it just since then, it's been Cage Legacy, and that's pretty much it. Apart from shows here and there, but for the most part, it's been Cage Legacy, and even at that, they've been putting on shows consistently, but it's not enough. Like, that's not it. It's even if we have Cage Legacy, that's not enough for the Republic. We need more shows, and I think that maybe to take the conversation a little bit further, and I'm as we're all aware, I'm not used to hosting this show, Ian O'Neill. I'm still looking forward to you coming back, so I'll just say what I'm thinking here, and then maybe you can chime in after, Caoilte. But like, when we look at where Irish MMA is right now on, I guess, a performance level, like, we had the first wave of Irish fighters who rose to prominence, who rose to the UFC, the Conor McGregor era, the Neil Seery, the Caoilte Pendra, the Aisling Daly, so on and so forth, Norman Park, etc. And then there was this like lull period where there was obviously the Bellator and PFL era, but we didn't really have anyone in, or the Bellator era rather, in Ireland. We didn't have anyone in the UFC really until Ian then gets in again, and we've got more fighters coming in, and we had Dean Barry, and we had some others, and obviously we have more. It's like we've gotten to a place again where we actually have a cohort of Irish fighters in the UFC, but the results are not there right now. Now, of course, Shauna got a great win there recently. Caolan has gotten a win, but we're struggling to get consistent wins at the UFC level right now, and I think there's a groundswell of talent breaking through, but I think it's incredibly important that we have a quality scene in the Republic of Ireland and in Northern Ireland. But we have the reason I'm saying the Republic is because we kind of have it there to an extent, or at least we have a better scene in the North, where you have, as like Max Lally was saying there, let's find out who the best Irish fighter is. Let's have people going against each other. Let's have quality matchmaking and get a bit of a buzz going. So where we don't want to be just in a position where Irish fighters are getting to the UFC and then there's all of a sudden this big jump, because like there seems to be a jump, and it's not just Irish fighters. You see it with many fighters. Look at like Jordan Vucenic has looked phenomenal lately, and I didn't have my hand up. I haven't actually seen the fight, and he was going in against a really tough test in Guram Kutateladze. But then you get to the UFC and you run into it's a jump up in competition, and in some ways it's not, because I feel like the barrier to entry in the UFC in some ways has never been lower, but at the same time it's incredibly difficult because of the routes that they make you go through now. It's just a very strange time where I feel like the Irish and to an extent the UK scene, there's a gap in the regional scene to the UFC level, and I think that by having a vibrant, competitive wealth of shows and Irish fighters versus Irish fighters, that breeds success, and that breeds people to get better, and to as I keep on referencing Max Lally here in this, but like Ian said to him, iron sharpens iron, and his response was and man sharpens man. And I think that's how fighters get better. And then you get to the top of the mountain regionally, and then you can take that next step, or you can test yourself. So I've gone on a bit of a random kind of soliloquy here, but does any of that make sense to you? Do you have any thoughts on it?
No, I get it completely. Yeah, I just want to see the scene kind of more competitive within itself at a professional level, as opposed to and to try and, if you're the best in Ireland, then you go on and, that type of thing. You become the best. Try and see people become the best in Ireland at their weight class, and then go on to fight in maybe another promotion elsewhere. Go abroad, try and fight the best in another country, maybe the best in Europe, and build from there, and maybe bridge that gap to the UFC, which we're seeing at the moment. Because even from that Cage Warriors level, there is quite a jump. I think the Cage Warriors have been quite exceptional with one or two of them in recent times that are doing quite well. Maybe not they're not upper UFC level yet there, but they do look like solid UFC fighters. But from the regional level, yeah, I do see what you mean completely, and I would love. I don't think it could really happen, to be honest, but I'd love to see it be such a competitive scene that it became attractive for bigger names to come over and fight, like the Cage. Maybe I'm falling in love with the the old days too much of the Cage Contender, because Cage Contender got me into MMA, full stop, and maybe I still think of that quite as kind of the pinnacle of the scene regionally for so long, and where you attract all these names from abroad and attract big names, bring them over here to fight our best, and then maybe off the back of that, fighters can get more recognition and bridge that gap between the regional scene and the entry level UFC that is kind of seen at the minute, and what you were alluding to there.
Yeah, no, that is, and I guess what we're hoping for may be just completely unrealistic right now, because when we're talking about off the back of that statement from Cage Legacy, where it's like they basically what it is promotions can't afford to operate and do business in the Republic of Ireland, and in order to breed kind of a vibrant and thriving scene where you have fighters and quality fighters, and like the likes of any of the fighters who aren't maybe signed to the bigger promotions, but they'll stay in Ireland and they'll compete, and you can actually have we can have prestigious titles or these types of things where it's it's not just whoever's fighting on that night, it's actually this is the guy, and here's the next guy. But you probably back then there was no money at all. There was no even possibility. It was a pipe dream to think that you could make a living from the sport, whereas now people are making their pro debuts and they're getting paid 10 grand, or sometimes, obviously a lot aren't.
Yeah. No.
And the money is still shite in MMA, but there's more of an opportunity there. So that's what people are also looking for. So yeah, it's a tough one. But I do think that this is a bad sign that you have Cage Legacy leaving the market. And I also think what also has come up for me the last while is the recent results in the UFC have got, and it is absolutely nothing against any of the fighters, because it's a very difficult thing to do, and I'm sure we'll see them back in there, and I'm sure we'll see them getting wins. But I think it really underlines how impressive what Ian Gary is doing right now is, because it's not easy to go in there and be undefeated and go 8-0 and be within touching distance of fighting for a UFC title. That is incredibly difficult to do, and we don't have. It's been a long time. Conor McGregor's the only, outside of Ian Gary, Conor McGregor's the only person who's had a more successful UFC career at this point. Now, I think Carl Pendred may have had more wins, or I can't remember, but Ian is going to break a lot of these records. So where we need to get to, where Irish MMA as a whole needs to get to, is where we have, not everyone's going to be Ian Gary, but then you have a lot of others who are, you might not be winning every single fight, but you're consistently winning in the UFC. And I think it's very, very possible. And I think that even the current crop, the likes of Caolan Loughran and Rhys McKee and Kiefer Crosby and Sean O'Bannon, there's certainly opportunity there. But the results right now have not been going the way of the Irish for the most part. So it's a tough one. But yeah, we've got. I'm just rambling at this point. I guess one of the points I'm trying to make is I think that the health of Irish MMA as a whole stems from the regional scene, and it stems from the likes of a Cage Legacy to in the early stages of a fighter's career to build them, to help them grow, and eventually they'll move on to the Cage Warriors and the PFLs and whoever else. But I think that that's important, and is a signal as to how healthy the scene is.
100%. I completely agree. And on the back of that, just to divert the conversation very so slightly, and something that it's got to do with the regional scene. I'm not too sure if, I'll be honest, I don't know all that much about it just yet. I haven't looked as much into it. I heard rumblings about it before and it was made official. It's up, it seems to be something that's up north. Maybe it'll help the scene up there a little bit more, but there was that creation of some international mixed martial arts commission where I think there's recently there's interim leads involved where Liam Shannon's like a promotions lead, Danny Core is a coaching lead, Aaron Wallace is a regulatory lead, and Paddy Black is a medical lead. And I don't know what that work is, what work they're going to be doing exactly, how it helps. But hopefully, just while we're speaking about the regional scene, hopefully something like that is able to benefit. Regional scene is able to benefit from something like that as well. Just as a quick side note of something I've just seen there.
Yeah, and again, that's the first I clearly went over my head and passed me by, so I haven't really seen anything with that. But it sounds like the type of thing that you would create with the view to assisting or helping with legitimizing Irish or legitimizing mixed martial arts in Ireland, whether it be north or south, and moving towards recognition, which would hopefully mean maybe some funding that could come in, and maybe I have no idea what that would look like necessarily, whether it would be if MMA was legalized in Ireland, if it was recognized as a sport under Sport Ireland, obviously that you would be able to apply for grants. Could promoters do that? If it was, maybe there was a way to, I don't know. Like realistically, these promotions are not making money anyway, or I highly doubt that they are. So maybe you could set up like a not-for-profit, some sort of promotion that is not, a not-for-profit, but could then receive government funding. I'm just completely throwing shit at a wall here. But anyway, we'll move on, I think, from this talk. Otherwise, I'll be here for another 3 hours just talking shite. But Caoilte, you are a resident amateur competition man. The IMAFs are on right now. The Youth World Championships. Tell us about that. What's going on over there?
I think it's the biggest one to date. The IMAF Youth World Championships for 2024. Usually, it's always held in August. But the biggest one today. It looks like the most competitive. It's usually see a lot of it's the next generation. To be very honest, like the kids MMA isn't exactly a thing for. There's competitions and there's You never see it on promotions really. You see teen MMA on Cage Legacy the odd time. But this, it's kind of the best from each country are going up against each other, and it's really cool. But Ireland, one of the most successful teams. A massive credit to all the coaches at IMA, Danny, Alan, people behind the scenes, the other coaches that I'm forgetting about as well, and people behind the scenes like Marlene and Liam Auld. They all do amazing work. From what I've seen for the youth championships, it's a Trojan effort to send all these athletes over, and there's over 40 gone over this year. Some recognizable names from last year. I think some of the girls from Relentless are gone over again. We're recording this on Tuesday. I have seen that there has been 2 gold medals and 1 bronze.
Brilliant.
Do not so far. So great, great.
I saw Danny McCormick posting earlier on that I believe Caden Dalton is a name that reached the final. So I don't know if they won, if she won or not, but fair play. Look, great to see. Building teams, youths getting opportunity to compete in these competitions. I'm gonna be completely honest here. I find it difficult to cover the IMAFs these days.
Fair.
In light of a lot of the stuff that's come out about it, with regards to from a financial perspective, how it's operated, or some of the reports that have come out, and then additionally from the child safeguarding. So I hope that it's run well. I hope that everyone over there is kept safe more than anything, and I think it's important for kids to be able to go out there and compete and all of that. I'm just going to be completely honest with everyone watching. I just find it very difficult to cover this because I don't know what has changed with regards to the organization after a lot of allegations that have come out about them. So, yeah, just being fully transparent there.
No, you're dead right. Yeah, no, the whole federation, all criticism is it's deserved. Not much has changed from, I guess, the top level board point of view. Other things, there has been changes. Obviously, there was that review that we saw, and that's a story for a different day altogether. But yeah, no, you're dead right, Andy.
Yeah, and maybe that's on me and us to kind of maybe dive into that a little bit more and do our homework a bit better. Obviously, we're doing our best here. Moving on, recent fighting. So there's been a bit of news lately. Now, there's not really a whole lot of action coming up at all. I don't think we have a single Irish fighter competing between now and our next episode. Danny McCormack has a huge fight coming up in that road to UFC, and we'll be speaking a lot about that in our next episode, so look out for that. But some of the big news, I guess, coming out the last little while, Will Fleury's got a fight. Of course, we spoke with Will a while back. I did an interview with him off the back of his obviously he failed the drug test and subsequently parted ways with PFL, but he's since come in under the Octagon banner, and he looked really solid in his debut there. I think he had a broken hand, if I remember correctly, in that one, which is even more impressive. I've probably got the thumb, was it? Yeah. Either way, he was severely compromised going into that fight. So an impressive showing in his debut, and this promotion have really seemed to get behind him. And I kind of like this. I don't know if it's like a villain arc or like a heel arc, but he's kind of like very just deadpan in all these videos, looking down the camera, being like, "What's up, man? Yeah, thanks for taking the fight. Gonna fucking smash you, but you're fucked." And fair play to you. So love that. He's fighting Pavel Langer, booked on the 12th of October in Deutsche Bank Park in Frankfurt, Germany. Now, this is going to be a huge fight, not only because he's fighting the number one contender and will soon be fighting for a belt, depending on, I guess it's unclear as to whether the champion is going to vacate or whatever. But this is apparently in front of 55,000 fans. So that's pretty insane for an Irishman to fight in front of a crowd like that.
It is incredible. For context, I was trying to see just the history of this stadium itself and kind of because it can hold up to about 60, 65 for kind of a concert style thing. So maybe if they're not sure if they sold it out. They expect to sell it out 55,000. To put that in perspective, in 2010, I was trying to find an Irish link here. U2 went to the stadium and played a gig with Kasabian as support act, and they managed 53,825. So there's going to be more people at this event than there was at that concert back in the day, if the numbers end up being correct. But yeah, I think it's just, even to be fighting at a stadium like this that's held such historic concerts, matches. I know the Three Arena is fantastic at all, but this is a different gravy altogether, to be honest with you. I think it's just really cool. And it's a really good fight, really good card. Octagon are brilliant for putting on these just spectacles, really.
Yeah. What they are doing in those European markets, kind of like, the Germany, Czech Republic, a lot of countries in that kind of general region in Europe is phenomenal. Like, they seem to have really, they have their market and it works for them. Now, obviously, we look at things from an Irish perspective. They ran that UK, they kind of had that UK and Ireland wing, and they did the reality show and had a number of fighters signed up. And since then, it's just not really seemed to to be, I don't mean this in a bad way, it looked like they sold very, very, very few tickets for that show that they did in the UK. And I think as a result of that, I wonder, have they assessed and decided, we saw them release a list of a lot of people who were cut from the promotion. They're probably looking at this to be like, right, we've got a good thing going on here. We can do what most promotions in the world cannot do and put 55,000 fans in a stadium. But if we go to another market here in the UK and Ireland and we're not selling shit, then let's get the hell out of here. And I reckon that's probably what's going on, without, just kind of speculating here. But that's my judgment on it, is they're out. They've seen, we tried, maybe not going to work right now. At least let's get out of here for a bit. So it's not ideal for the Irish fighters who've signed. I actually ran into Shamrock and Armin Herzog at the fights. I was queuing for the Jacks. I was chatting to them, and like it seems like he's obviously, I think he put some stuff up online as well where he's parted ways with the promotion. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see if that does become a thing again. But it seems for now, Octagon for some fighters like the Will Flurries, etc. When you're going to be fighting, in these shows in Central Europe, it's an option. But if you are maybe a fighter who hasn't built their name yet, who doesn't have the experience, that may not be an option anymore. I don't know, but I would be surprised if where we had maybe 6 months ago, a year ago, it was like, oh, this is this new exciting option that could be another one to the Bellators and PFLs and Cage Warriors. It may not be the case anymore, so we'll see. There is a lot of fights been announced though for this FCC card, and the aforementioned Armin Herzog is one of them. So FCC, which is broadcast on UFC Fight Pass as a show, FCC 39 in Liverpool on Saturday the 7th of September. And we've got some pretty solid fights on this. Conor McCarthy, who fresh off his win there at Cage Legacy 23, will take on Will Haycock's Caoilte 3-0. I mean, this is what we wanted, right?
Yeah, this is good matchmaking. This is a really good fight. You couldn't ask. You know what? You couldn't ask for anything more. This is absolutely perfect. And this Will Haycock's, like, he doesn't look like a lad who he looks very good. Like, all his fights are against. The UK scene is fairly bad for having mismatches. We all know that. It's not a padded record by the looks of things. The opponents look legit. He's got some good wins as an amateur as well. He's got a win against Ben Petches-Kelly, which is brilliant as well. So he's a finisher. I don't think he's ever been to a decision. Oh no, he's been to one decision as a pro, and he's a banana split win in his last fight as well, which is absolutely mental. So what a fight. I think this is the perfect test, and a massive opportunity for Conor to kind of use this win as kind of a springboard to a very good fight, good promotion, whatever, really. But it'd be brilliant for him. Great one for the record.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's, as you said, he's won every single fight, and he's only been to a decision once. And that win you mentioned there over Ben Petches-Kelly, who's a solid fighter I think he's out of Next Gen in Liverpool, right?
That's it.
Went to a fourth round with him, so that's some solid experience there. This is what you want to see. It doesn't really matter about going through this guy's record. Even as Conor McCarthy's 2-0 as a pro. This guy's 3-0. This is a solid matchup. So very much looking forward to seeing this. A few other fights on that fight card. Armin Herzog taking on Matthias Ikro. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Trevor McKengo will take on Hassan Hussein in a pro heavyweight bout. McKengo obviously was going back and forth. There was a lot of stuff with himself and Johnny Jitsu there for a while. After an interesting scene at a Cage Legacy event. That fight seems to not have materialized, and instead McKengo has set his sights elsewhere and will fight on this card against Hassan Hussein. We also have an amateur bantamweight title, Dale Sheridan, taking on Tom Hardy. So that card on the 7th September is going to be very interesting to watch. I love that it's on UFC Fight Pass. Some good exposure and obviously a quality broadcast. And FCC put on good shows in the UK. I think that a lot of fighters have come out through there. Paddy Pimblett, of course. I think our SevereMMA alumnus, Callie Steve, I believe, had some memorable interviews off the back of some FCC events with Paddy Pimblett back in the day. Other news, Irish fighting abroad is Ciara McGurk is making her pro debut. Now, Ciara McGurk is actually, I feel like, someone who's kind of really flown under our radar, because I don't know if it's just, I feel like she's maybe fought abroad a bit more, or I don't know what it is, but I feel like we haven't talked a lot about her. She's a fighter coming out of Team KF, making her professional debut, and I've seen her fight. She hits like a truck. So I'm very interested to see how she gets on here. She's taking on Gemma Auld, fighting out of higher level in Scotland on this PFL Scotland card on the 20th September, the same card that the Scatisi siblings will be fighting in the tournaments in Valentina and Daniele. This is just a regular fight. But interesting to me here is that we're seeing Team KF on PFL. Is that, did you notice that? Am I just kind of in the weeds here? I'm like, oh, who's fighting on which show? Are they Cage Warriors? Are they this show? I thought it was quite interesting to see.
Well, just to I know I think you're right, especially because look at the division. That's flyweight, right? And we typically associate Team KF with Cage Warriors. You know, a lot of fighters are competing there. The Shelley brothers, Taka, Leon Hill. I could be missing someone as well. But so they're usually around that. They're usually competing at Cage Warriors. Dom Norcus obviously hasn't been. He's been doing elsewhere. But anyways, with Cage Warriors building out the women's divisions at the moment, especially I think flyweight's one of them that they're focusing on. I would have thought she would have been a sure thing for them if that was the case, that she was deciding to go pro. But sometimes people, money talks, and PFL are seen to be offering decent money to fighters, so that could be a factor there too. But it is interesting that they decided to go on this route, and I think it's great that they've gotten the opportunity to compete on to get that recognition from PFL as well. Get just more Irish fighters signed to the big promotion. It's what we've been crying out for ages.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, like I've no idea if this is a one fight deal or a multi fight or anything like that. But coming in fighting a hometown fighter in Scotland, that'll be very interesting to see. Just on the Team KF note, I forgot to mention Adam Shelley was in action at Cage Warriors over in Newcastle. I think it was the Thursday show. Okay,
was that at Manchester? Oh God,
maybe it was. That's just. He was fighting somewhere, but he was taking on Ewan Davies and he suffered a second round submission loss. It was a rough 8 days or so for the Shelley brothers, unfortunately, but obviously Ryan losing the previous week. But yeah, like a tough loss for Shelley. This Ewan Davies, he's kind of a dream killer right now for Team KF. Obviously, he had the win over Leon Hill. Like I'd kind of be saying to Chris Fields, like maybe stop matching your fighters against this lad, but I know that the response I'd probably receive is I'm going to match a third one, and that'll be I wouldn't be surprised to see Dom Norcus or someone against him now soon enough to get revenge. But like I watching this fight, the first round, I thought I was almost watching the same fight as Ryan's fight the previous week against I forget his name, the stocky lad with the black hair. Who's Ryan Shelley fight the previous week?
Nick Bagley.
Nick Bagley, that's the one. It looked very similar to that. Now, Adam did a great job of surviving, and I thought he really grew into that first round. I thought he was finding his range, he was finding a home for his shots, and I thought he was looking great, despite like the early storm he had to weather. But Ewan Davies came out very, very strong in that second round, hurt him, and ultimately then finished it on the mat. So an unfortunate loss for Adam there. And I guess to wrap up the episode, Caoilte, we have some fight/event announcements with UR FC 12 on Sunday the 15th of September, and Clan Wars 50 also announced. I'm gonna read out some fight announcements here from UR and just get your take on them. Carl McConway versus Shane Mullen. Did you see that one?
What a fight! Yeah, the most recent announcement, I believe it is.
Yeah,
it's exactly what we. Dickie McAleenan does it again. He's, he always matches great fights. But wow, yeah, this is
this one's exactly a pro, right? This is a pro fight, I think.
Pro bantamweight, yeah.
So Carl McConway, the man with one of the longest records, I would say, in Irish MMA, fights everyone. I don't know when's the last time. I feel like a year ago or maybe 18 months ago, every single episode we'd be talking about a Carl McConway fight, and I feel like I haven't heard his name in quite some time, so I haven't looked up his record, but it's probably been a little bit since he last fought, is it?
I actually haven't checked. I can do some live research here.
It's good to see him. It's good to see him back. It'd be interesting to see him now as a pro. Some other brilliant fights on that card. Shea Cleland versus Henry Lecca. I am very much excited to see that one, a flyweight bout. Two very entertaining fighters. Jared Ryan versus Adrian Barrow for the bantamweight title. There was another one. Oh, here's the one. Sorry. I've buried the lead here. Jordan Scully is taking on Roman David for the super featherweight title. And sweet baby Jesus, am I excited for this one. I mean, two, I would say different styles. So it'll be very interesting to see how this one plays out. Like I feel like both are well-rounded, but I would associate, grappling maybe some ground and pound and submissions with Scully, and I would associate very crisp, clean striking with Roman David. So I am incredibly excited to see this fight, and this is a banger written all over it, right?
Oh yeah, champion versus champion as well, isn't it? And they're both who walks out with the second title at the end. It's brilliant fight. Probably the standout of all the ones that's been announced so far. No disrespect to the professional fights that have been announced, but this one is has really been. I was shocked when it was announced. Like, this is
interesting as well. Like, I hadn't noticed this until you just said it right there, and I'm looking at the poster. That it's so Scully is the lightweight champion. David is, or David. I don't know if it's Roman David or Roman David. He's the welterweight champion, but they're not meeting in the middle. They're going down. They're actually both going down to super featherweight. So they're fighting at 150 pounds. So Jordan's gone down half a weight class, and Roman's gone down a weight class and a half. Now, obviously, it's amateur. They've fought at multiple weight classes, etc. But yeah, very interesting stuff here. That is a fantastic fight. Maga Zurabov is also taking on Jess Paulo in a professional fight. I believe it's a 73 kg catchweight fight. So we talk about wanting to see these pro fights. Very much looking forward to seeing that one. We also have Reno Flaherty against Dimitri Pintley. Let me see some other. Ava Cruz versus Chloe Crozier. And I feel like there's probably one or two more I'm missing out. Oh, Alex Kyo, the aforementioned Alex Kyo from earlier on, looks to be set to face Usheen Daly here. So very much looking forward to these fights. Additionally, Clan Wars have announced their 50th show in a new venue for later this year up in Belfast. They are going to be putting on an event at the New Forge Arena. So I saw that Gary Rooney has already been confirmed for this card, and I think kind of an open call as a kind of a grand event, considering it's their 50th show, which is a serious feat to put on 50 shows in Ireland. To be fair to them, they're calling on kind of their fighters past and present to come and fight in this show. So I guess we'll find out what that one looks like. But not to go Debbie Downer here again after we've had an old chat about the state of Irish MMA, but there's not a lot of events coming up, is there? In Ireland for the rest of the year. We don't have any Cage Warriors. We don't have any PFL. Bellator doesn't exist anymore, or well, it does, but no more Bellator. It seems no Cage Legacy. So we've got I'm sure we'll have, I think probably already announced, I'm just forgetting Cage Conflict. We'll definitely have some shows.
There's one announced for that, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, so we'll have to update our Akuma, yeah, to be fair. Maybe I'm just full of shit here. Maybe I just need to update our calendar. But it'll be interesting, Caoilte, to see how the rest of the year plays out, both internationally and domestically. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all we have for the episode. We're a bit subdued, you know. Ian usually has us upbeat. He's abandoned us. I mean, like, how selfish of him. He's probably not made it this Friday. Like, he is 100% tuned out. Like, an hour ago, it's like, I couldn't be arsed listening to these fucking cunts. I probably shouldn't say that word because that may get flagged. But I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway,
he'd give up. He'd go drink a pint, or no, do you know what? He wouldn't have a pint. Not in Sorrento. He would have a lovely cocktail or limoncello to go with it, and sit down by the beach.
Campari's, is that a drink? Campari's. I feel like that's a very Italian Riviera type drink.
Sounds like it. Yeah, it sounds like it. So he's living it up basically, while we sit in the it's darkness now, but mainly it's been raining all day today. So,
but you know, Kelly Harrington is a double Olympic gold medalist. That means we are all double Olympic gold. I think that's how that works. So, you know, she did it for Ireland, so then we're all winners here. We're all winners. But look, Caoilte, it's been a pleasure as always. I think we can wrap it up there. Ian O'Neill will be back next episode. If you've made it this far, I forgot to say this at the start. Thank you to everyone who left a comment, who liked, who subscribed, who left a rating on Spotify or YouTube or wherever else. Really, really genuinely appreciate that. We did notice an uptick in that. If you could do it again, if you could do it every episode, we would love you forever, and it'll really help us to crack on. This has been a bit of a filler episode. Maybe there's not a whole lot going on right now. This in this current couple of weeks in Irish MMA, but we did have a lot to talk about still, and we will be back with a bang with Ian O'Neill leading the ship once again with a guest next time. No guest this week. My sincere apologies to you all. But Caoilte, have you anything before you see us out? Have you anything else left to add? Any thoughts? Any musings?
No, it's too late for that, Andy. Garmina Maho give a slung fall.
Good luck.